Hi guys, Fleurette here with Ink on 3. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm so excited to be back at the Stamp and Scrapbook Expo's Stamping Techniques event. We're going to have a lot of fun and create a really elegant card using all kinds of stamping techniques. So we're going to use stamps, we're going to use dies, we're going to use inks of course, and I'm going to also use the Fade Out No Line Coloring ink, which is our specialty ink, as well as our Atelier ink, which is another one of our specialty inks that we developed. So let's get started. Oh, and don't forget there's a coupon for the show and I'll have details for that as well. So let's get started and get your ink on. So here's the card. It's very elegant. We're going to create it step by step and you're going to be surprised at how easy it is. In front of me I have all the great products we're going to use today to make this card. This is the Roses in Bloom stamp set and it has this big beautiful rose. It's really fun to color, but it also has all these amazing sentiments like thank you, and if friends were flowers I'd pick you. Love that sentiment. It's just so cool. And then there's also thoughts and prayers are with you and a few others, so it's very versatile. And what's really fun is we're going to pair it with the Bad and Bougie stamp set, which is a really playful set, and it has kisses and sending kisses. It has the big kiss stamp, a diamond, a perfume bottle that you can make really fancy, and you're going to see what we're going to do with that. And there's also dies that go with the Bad and Bougie stamp set too that are really fun. They're coordinating dies. And we're going to use some liquid pixie dust, the 3 essential inks, as well as the Atelier ink. So we're going to have a lot of fun here. So to start off, we're going to use some Blackout detail ink. It's a really amazing ink because it dries almost instantly to the touch. So you're going to get these really crisp black lines and you're not going to smear your project. And so what we're doing here is we are stamping it on the edge using our Misty, and you're going to see why we stamped it off the edge in a little bit. Now when you stamp with Blackout, the nice thing is it is Copic friendly and it's a permanent ink, but it's also very easy to clean off. I just use the ink off cloth because we have this great cleaner called the Ink Off Cleaner, and it's in a pad and it's really easy to clean your stamps, and it makes cleaning your stamps a lot more fun. I actually clean my stamps all the time now, which before I didn't want to because it wasn't so easy, but this makes it a breeze. And you can see I just wipe it off, and if you want to, you can also spritz it with a little water. You don't have to, but sometimes I like to just to get it a little squeaky clean there. And I'm just going to wipe it off with my ink off cloth. You can also use it to clean your stamping blocks, your mat, your Misty, so it's extremely versatile and easy to use. And look at how easy my stamp is already clean and ready to be put away and ready for the next stamping session. The thing I wanted to mention about Blackout ink is that it is also waterproof, so you can use it for watercoloring as well. So here is our panel that we stamped earlier. I'm just taking a rectangle die, placing it in the center of the panel, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. And here you can see we have 2 pieces. I'm going to set that frame aside and we're going to do a little ink blending. I grabbed the My Jam Purple and a blending brush, and I want to get a really soft, smooth blend. So I take my brush and I dip it into the lid because I already have some ink there. I like to put my ink in my lid so that it's always readily available and I can get a softer color. And it also will give you a softer color if you use a lighter touch. And what's really great about the Atelier Artist Grade Fusion inks is you can get a variety of colors. You can get a really deep dark purple or a really light lavender like we're getting here, and it's all by the way you apply it. The other thing is all the colors were designed to blend together. So you can blend these together and create new colors, or you can also blend them together to just get these really awesome blending shaded techniques. And here you can see I'm blending the 2 colors together, and it's going to give me a little bit different purple at the bottom. It's going to add like a little bluish tint, but I'm also putting the Atelier Peacock Blue on very lightly. Like I said, I always will tap off into my lid, and I always have that ink readily available, and it just makes things a little easier. I usually will start by blending off the page and pulling onto the page, especially if I'm going for a really light color. And I can layer my colors as I go along. A lot of times I'll like to start light and then build my colors up. So you can do that or start dark, and we're going to do that later too. But here we just really wanted a really, really soft, pretty blend, almost like an ombre. You'll also notice I have a piece of paper that I've been moving around, and I use that so that my fingers don't get in the ink, so that I can keep more control of what the panel turns out to. So I'm not getting my fingerprints on the panel, and I'm also not getting the ink on my fingers. You can also use it like I did just to test how light of color you have on your brush. And also with brushes, you can get either a really dark tone or a really light tone. If you want to get your deepest, darkest tone, then you might use a dauber. That'll give you a little more ink and a darker color. But this will, to keep that really elegant, pretty look, almost like a window, I wanted it to be very, very soft. I love blending with Atelier because it's buttery smooth. The other nice thing is the case is stacked together, and you can also stamp really well with it, and it's also water reactive, so you can do all kinds of water techniques as well as watercoloring. Now it's time for our next step, and we're going to do some no line coloring, and we're going to use the Fade Out No Line Coloring ink. You can stamp it one time and you're going to have a really light color, which a lot of Copic colorists love it for. If you have less lighting or you have bad eyesight, you can stamp it multiple times. The more you stamp it, the darker it will get, and you'll be able to see it better. I stamped it multiple times so that you could see it on camera, but the technique will be the same, and it will perform for you the same no matter how many times you stamp it. It really is an amazing ink. I actually took 2 years to develop it because I wanted something new, and this is the very first ink ever designed specifically for no line coloring. It is the original, and it really is amazing. It's a magical ink, and I'm going to show you how we do some really easy no line coloring here. So anybody can do it. I'm taking some of the Bee Sting Yellow Atelier ink, which I said is great for watercoloring. It's one of my favorite mediums to watercolor with. It is buttery smooth, it takes to the water really well. And earlier I was showing the brush that I'm using. It's a water brush pen, and it has a really fine tip with a lot of spring, so it keeps its shape really well, and it's really great for small images. And you'll see I have an ink off cloth. I can not only use it for cleaning my stamps, but I like to use one for watercoloring with, just to take that excess water off my brush. And you can see I'm actually dipping straight into the Atelier Bee Sting Yellow, and I'm just going right over all the lines of that perfume bottle that I stamped. That's one of the magical things about the Fade Out No Line Coloring ink, is I can take my paint or ink or whatever I'm going to be watercoloring with and go right over the lines. The lines are going to become the color of the media or paint or ink that I lay on top. So those lines are not going to disappear. They are going to change to the color that I put on top of them. So it makes no line coloring really easy. I don't have to worry about lines disappearing. I can just think about where I want my colors, where I want it darkest, where I want it lightest. I usually like to start light and then build my colors up because I like to think about what I'm doing. Do I want it to be light here or dark here? And if I start light, I can just build those colors up. That's the other thing about Atelier ink, is you can build and layer colors. So it's really versatile. So that's all the coloring we need to do on the perfume bottle. And you can see it was really, really easy. One of my tips for watercoloring is always use less water than you think. You really just want a brush tip that's very damp, barely wet to the touch, and you're going to have more success the less water you use. Now on the screen, it's kind of hard to see what the perfume bottle looks like, but you'll see it closer up a little bit later, and you're going to see we've retained all the details, but we've got this really pretty translucent perfume bottle now. So now we're going to make the diamond also a translucent look. So I wanted to make sure and start light and then work my way darker to figure out where I want those shadows, where I want it lighter, darker. If you notice, like you'll look here and you'll see some of the lines got a little dark. They grabbed the color. Don't worry about that. It will settle down as it dries. Every time you watercolor, it's going to be a little bit darker in spots, or it might look a little fuzzy sometimes, but as it dries, it settles down. And the magical thing about fade out ink is you will see when your image is all dry, it's going to look beautiful. It does most of the work for you. And now when you combine the Atelier with the fade out ink, because they were designed to work together, they were designed to be a pair to make no line coloring that much easier. So fade out made it really easy. And then when we pair fade out with the Atelier, it even got more fun and easier. One of the reasons that Atelier is so amazing to watercolor with is because it is very forgiving. You can paint something and then rework it later. It gives you a lot of working time. So you can go back after it's dry and move things around or add more layers. So you can continually correct something or play with it until you get the desired effect you're looking for. So these two inks together are going to make your coloring and take your coloring to a whole new level. I wanted to make sure and give you another tip in watercoloring. When you're coloring small images like the ones we just did there and you're using a water brush pen, I usually recommend to not have water in the pen. And the reason is it's a small area, you don't want to have that much water coming out. If you're using a water brush pen and you're coloring like a large petal, then I might have water in the water brush pen. Otherwise, I'm using it as I would a normal paintbrush. So here I decide I want to dry it a little, and you can see I flip it back and forth. When you're watercoloring, your paper will warp a little bit when you dry, but if you turn it back and forth, it's going to keep your paper straighter. So when we stamped the perfume bottle and the diamond earlier, I kept those stamps in my MISTI so that we could do this next part and be able to put our paper back in and stamp over it and have the things go in the same exact place. That's what's amazing about the MISTI, is you can restamp and do some fun things like this. So what I did was I stamped it with our Juicy Embossing ink, and then I put some embossing powder on just the cap of the bottle, and then I used a little paintbrush just to wipe away any of the powder that maybe went in the wrong space. But that gave me this beautiful golden shiny cap, and it's so fun because now we've mixed the no-line coloring with some embossing, and it's going to look like a real perfume bottle. My stamps back in my MISTI, and you notice I didn't bother cleaning them, and that's because with the fade out ink you don't have to worry about cleaning your stamps because it will not contaminate any of your other inks when you use them later because of the properties of that ink. So now I took off the bottle off the MISTI, and I'm grabbing these little C's that are part of the Bad and Bougie stamp set, and I'm putting it on the bottle, and I'm going to emboss the little C this way, then with the Juicy Embossing ink. And the nice thing about our Juicy Embossing ink, what's so amazing, it's super juicy, but it's also great with detailed images. Now here you see we got the first C on, and I poured a little of our Gold Rush Ultrafine Embossing powder on it. And our embossing powder is amazing because it really goes well with detailed images. And then I put the C going the other way, and we got our double C's for our ultra fancy perfume bottle. And many of you will recognize what that perfume is. It's really kind of fun. So now we're going to do a little more ink blending. I'm going to bring back those little items with the perfume bottle a little bit. You'll get a better look at them. But I wanted to show you here how you can get a really deep dark tone. You can see how deep of a blue I got on the bottom of that, and then I blended it up to a really nice ombre effect. And as the ink dries, it blends even more. It all evens out, and you can see, look at that beautiful ombre. And I took the big Bougie die from the coordinating die set, and we cut out the Bougie sentiment, and now I've got an ombre sentiment. Isn't that so cool? And so I'm just going to take a little pokey tool and poke out that little section of the E, and now we're going to do another little thing to our die cut. So our die cut is going to go on our card. It's going to have the ombre effect, but we're going to add a little glitz and glam to that with our liquid pixie dust. What I love about liquid pixie dust is how versatile it is. Here I just took a little of the liquid pixie dust and put it on a stamping block, and I'm using my paintbrush just to paint it on. And you can see it's really not disturbing the color of the ombre. It's giving us a really nice, pretty look. The more I add, I'm going to get some nice highlights in it as well, and you'll see that as it dries. So we're going to move on to the next step of the card, but you're going to see we're going to bring back all the pieces and put this whole thing together. So right now I just have a panel that's an A2 size panel, and I want to have a really light frame around the other pieces that we've created already. So now I'm grabbing the peacock blue again, and you're going to see an even lighter shade of the peacock blue. So you can see you can get a very wide variety of colors out of each of our ink pads. We have a full rainbow But in that rainbow, you're going to get all kinds of colors, and it all depends on how heavy you use the ink, how light of a touch you have, what kind of blending tool you use. You can get all kinds of colors. So I wanted this really pretty frame, and I love this peacock blue color. It's just such an amazing color. We have that all blended and soft and pretty. I'm going to grab the frame from the beginning of this tutorial, and I'm going to glue it down onto that panel. And I'm just going to center it. I use some liquid adhesive glue so it gives me a little wiggle room. And you can see we have the piece of the stamp that is part of the rose that was cut off. And then to the side there, I have the panel that we ink blended with the Atelier, My Jam Purple, and Peacock Blue. And I put some foam squares on that. And now we're going to line that up with the rose that was stamped earlier. So we're just going to line it up. So we're going to have this really cool effect where we're going to have the color of the rose and then the black and white, and it's just stamp on, stamp off. It's a really cool technique, a really cool effect. I wanted to give this a frosted glass look, so I took the die that we used earlier and I cut a piece of vellum, and now we're just going to glue that over the top of the ink blended piece that we did earlier. I like to use like a tape runner that has the little dots so it doesn't really show up under the vellum. It's going to really just disappear under there. But you're going to see this is going to add another layer of elegance, and it's going to look like a frosted glass piece. Now see how that changed? It's a subtle difference, but it adds that little bit of elegance. And above there you can see we have our perfume bottle, our diamond, and our bougie sentiment. And I love that bougie sentiment. It really basically just means extra fancy. So we took our extra fancy perfume bottle with our embossed gold C's on there, and it just looks so nice with the no line coloring. It just gives it that translucent, very elegant look to your card. What I did here is I glued the two pieces together. I grabbed the bougie sentiment just to make sure where I wanted to place it, and now I'm going to place the bougie sentiment next. So now we're going to adhere the sentiment. I'm just going to grab some liquid glue and put some little dots. When I have a sentiment that's delicate like this one, a little tiny dots all over works really well. Of course, now I'm thinking I should probably be using tweezers because it would be easier for me to use. I wouldn't be getting glue on my hands, and then it makes it easier to adhere to your card. So I decide to grab my tweezers, and oops, I drop it, but luckily it lands glue side up. And so my recommendation is always move your card to the side before you start gluing your sentiment. So I finished putting some little dots of glue, and I want to make sure to get on all the little pieces that might hang off. And I think I've got it good here. And I'm just going to readjust it to a spot that makes it easier for me to place. I love these kind of tweezers that lock in, so I don't have to hold it the whole time. So now I'm just going to place it right over the perfume bottle. I think this gives a really nice arrangement. And then I'm just going to use my fingertips to gently tack it down onto the card. Isn't that so pretty? I just love how elegant this card turns out. And now I just adhere it to the front of my card. Take the panel and adhere it to a card front. Getting a little tongue tied there, as you can see, but look how pretty that's looking. And I just go around the sides and make sure it's all glued down. And I really wish you could see that gold, how it looks in person. It is so, so beautiful, bright, and gold and shiny. So I wanted to make sure to remind you that we do have a special going on right now for this expo show. It's 20% off your entire order. So it's a really great time to grab some goodies, and we are well stocked on everything. So you should be able to come in and grab some stuff before it sells out again. Look at the card. It's so pretty, and I really think you could do this too. It's really easy. We use Atelier, and I even took the Atelier and stamped it on the inside of the card, so when someone receives it and they open it, they've got the beautiful rose on the inside and the outside. We used our 3 essential inks, the Fade Out, the Blackout, and the Juicy. And with these inks, you can do any technique that you really want to. And that's why we call them our 3 essential inks. They're all 3 amazing inks. And then we also have the Atelier. And the good news is we will be coming out with new colors, so stay tuned for that. Whoever gets this card is really gonna love it. And it was just so fun to make. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. I hope you had as much fun creating that card with me as I did with you. I hope you'll check out our YouTube channel as well as our Instagram. We always have all kinds of crafty goodies coming out, and we also are always doing different tutorials on how to use all the products and different products as well. So check that out and check out the coupon. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.